Hello, everybody. This is Baruti Carl Alexander, and this is the Sourceseeker Hour. This is our 170th episode, and our subject is what is the meaning of life and the purpose of existence? We've talked about it before, but we can never talk about it enough because it's a very curious thing. Now, some people will say, why are you even worrying about that? Just live, just do what you do. Some people say, hey, it's a very important thing to think about it. Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing on this earth? So it's a very interesting topic for some people not. So what I would like to do is have my guests introduce themselves and tell us why they are here to discuss this subject about what is the meaning of life. Brother Ron, you just wrote a book, Climb, Uplift, and Build. Why are we discussing this particular subject? And please introduce yourself.
Okay, as you said, my name is Ron Angeletti. I am an educational consultant and a special needs advocate, author, a father of 4, grandfather of 6. In terms of, just to kind of be straight to it, and not to be religious at all, but the Bible says, we're here for such a time as this. And so to have this type of discussion, there's a great need because of those of us that are enlightened, those of us that have the hope. What good is having a light in hiding it, right? So it's very important to have this type of dialogue publicly. We talked a little bit when we met a few weeks ago about darkness, right? We are in some dark times. A lot of people say that, but I'm a firm believer that darkness is not a force; it's merely the absence of light. And so, because of that, I think these type of discussions is very, very important, and even more important to have them on a public platform, so that we can be lenders of hope to kind of share out our light. Absolutely.
Powerful, powerful. Brother Keith Strong, Sababu, same
Yes.
introduction, please, and share what you feel.
Yeah, my name is Keith Strong, and I'm one of the oldest ones on this panel, I guess. I'm 67 years old. Glad to be here. Been a member of the Shrine of Black Madonna for several years. I'm not on this panel to represent the Shrine, but just to give you some context on my belief, my perspectives on this topic. And be honest with you, I'm here today because that's a question that philosophers and historians and physicists and others have been wrestling with since the beginning of the time, trying to figure out the meaning of life. And so, we each have our own perspectives based on our experiences and based on our beliefs and so forth. So I'm just here to share my perspectives and learn from the folks on this panel as well.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you. And a highlight or a word. I am a member of the Shrine, or sometimes maybe they don't claim me anymore, but I still have my belief in what I was taught in the Shrine also. So my background comes from that theology. Also, as well as I have to give a shout out to Jehovah's Witnesses. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness till 13. The only change happened when my mom said I couldn't go to the Parliament concert. So I said something was wrong right there. That's a whole nother discussion, though. Sister Cassandra, can you tell us who you are and why did you want to share about this discussion?
Okay, well, my name is Cassandra Barnes. I am a registered nurse as well as a licensed psychotherapist, board certified in trauma as well as neuropsychotherapy. Actually planning to start my doctorate degree later this year, hopefully at Harvard. I haven't gotten the official acceptance yet, but they said I'll know by the end of next month. So I'm believing God to order that step for me. This is very significant. I am the owner of my practice, the Victoria Barnes Mental Health and Wellness Center, named after my grandmother, where I provide counseling services and mental health wellness services. This is very significant to me because, as the gentleman stated, this has been an ongoing question, and I don't think that we will actually have a definitive answer on this side of existence. I think that it is too dynamic, too broad, and then we just don't have all the information. We're too limited in our human existence to really probably definitive answer the meaning of life. Think is way beyond the scope of who we are as limited people. But I think it is. There's a book called The Search of Significance that we read when I was working on my master's, and we're always in search of the why, and I think that's just a part of how God created us. I'm a strong Christian believer. I make no excuses or no mistakes about that. Everything I do is ordered by him. But I think the drive for us as humans, the drive for me as a therapist, is to just help people figure out their why. We may not understand the broader uh, scheme of things and why we evolved into this earth realm. But if we can figure out our why, I think a lot of the psychological and emotional mental health issues that we deal with is because we haven't truly tapped into that main answer. Because when you tap into the why of your existence, a lot of other things that keep you in emotional distress um seems to heal, because now you're in purpose. Now you're doing what you were put in this earth realm to do. And so I would just, as the probably the only psychotherapist on the panel, I would like to just lend some conversation related to the human psyche and how that drives the conversation around existence and why we're here and what that is all about.
The first thing I would like to, I guess, try to establish is that this life that we live did not just happen by chance. Now, some would say, the Big Bang Theory happened and life just happened and it doesn't have any order. I'm not a believer in that. If you look at how things happen in such a perfect kind of system, well, not perfect, but as far as we know, everything happens in order. 365 days, perfect rotation. The atmosphere comes in such a way that humans and other beings can live. And that is not by accident. So those things, I have to say, were put together in such a way that something was meant to happen. And everything works in such a way that you have to say it has to be some reason, some use, some value. If you just look at it, it's not just by happenstance. Things weren't just thrown together. Now, there are some things that did not work as far as we know in a perfect order. There are human beings that do not have all the faculties, do not have all their limbs, do not have everything that most human beings are born with. But for the most part, everything happens in a kind of definitive way, and we can see a reason and a purpose or a way that it was created, and must be some reason, something that we're supposed to do. I'm still trying to figure that out, and that's one of the things. Now, I agree with Cassandra. that, hey, we're meant to figure that out. But if we can find our personal purpose, then that is pretty good. Brother Angeletti, what's your perspective on that?
Okay, and then before I go any further, I want to say congratulations to you, if you don't mind me saying your first name, Cassandra.
Oh,
on
absolutely.
your endeavor into Harvard, and definitely wish you the best in that endeavor. Absolutely. That's
Thank
awesome. That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And so no, just to respond to that specific question, I'm absolutely a believer in creationism, right? I mean, in terms of there's a creator. Life is too complex to subscribe to some theory or thought of that it just haphazardly happened, right? I mean, it's too complex. Scientifically speaking, and I'm no scientist at all, but scientifically, just speaking of gravity and the way it is, if it was, so many I mean, just the whole mathematical equation would keep the Earth on its axis rotating, right? And if it was just a little bit shifted, it changes everything. So it's too complex to think to subscribe to that idea that we are just haphazardly here, and that's just it. I mean, there's too much that goes with that, right?
Mhm.
Without even getting into my personal belief, like you said, I am a believer, and so I do you know, read the word, and I do believe that the word, when I say the word, the Bible specifically, that it is true, right? And so there's so much that goes with that. But again, not just to make this strictly a religious conversation of my faith, but everything that I believe about our existence is hinged upon the Bible being true, right? And he said
Mhm.
before he formed us, he knew us, right? And so I have
Mhm.
to believe before we come here to where we come here, yes. And even scientifically, even if you're looking at it through the lenses of, sperm to egg, right? And it says over 500 million sperm cells that actually take that travel. And the
Mhm.
one that actually made it to the egg is we exist, right? And that's not even getting into
Mhm.
creationism or whatever. That's just speaking that. And so if science, and a lot of times science, I know in the religion or faith don't really intersect perfectly, but that alone, if you say, okay, we exist, specifically for a reason, and our lifelong journey is to discover what is that reason. So life is not about what happens to us, but how we respond to what happens to us. And I think our response is still hinged upon what is our belief in terms of our existence. And so this discussion, I think, is awesome just to be able to have, and it's going to spark some thoughts, right? Obviously, even having a discussion, you have beliefs, and then you have to consider certain things are
Mhm.
said, and it just thought provoking to say the least, right? And in
Mhm.
school, I remember when I was in for education administration, but I took a counseling class. I forget the name. I think it was human growth and development, and it
Mhm.
was the topic was nurture versus nature versus nurture, right?
Mhm.
What accounts for who we are and what we do? Is it nature? Or is it things that we're taught, or is it? I mean, nature as in you're born with it, innate, or is
Mhm.
it our environment, right? And that's the go back to what Brother Keith was saying, is that it's an age old question, right? It hasn't yet, and I don't think it ever just be answered, because there always be school of thought that to the flip side of the coin, right? So
Mhm.
it's just one of those things. I think it's great for discussion. Hopefully that it lends hope to those that are feeling some sense of hopelessness in their existence,
Mhm.
to lend that hope, to say that we are here for, again, I go back to such a time as this, right? We have a purpose. We're not just haphazardly existing, but we're here intentionally. It's our job, it's our responsibility to draw closer to that in our existence, to see what is that purpose. How do I fit in? That's one of the pillars of emotional intelligence. In my book, I talk about those five:
Mhm.
self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationships, and responsible decision making. And the third of the five I just mentioned is that social awareness. How do I fit into the larger context of society? How do I fit in? That's our responsibility. Once we know ourselves, we can control ourselves, and we have a responsibility to see how do we as individuals fit into the larger scope, and what is our contribution to society.
Mhm.
Understood. Those five pillars that you mentioned, that's very important to try to figure out how to navigate in this world. I do want to interject this. according to my understanding, life was in existence and people were interacting and surviving 1,000 years before the Bible was written. So life was happening before Christianity came about, and it is just another aspect of this discussion. Brother Keith, the theorists say that there are 4 different levels of them kind of categorizing the search for the identity of trying to figure this out as far as life and existence and what is the meaning of it. It's existentialism, hedonism, nihilism, and theism. And they say that those are the 4 concepts that they have categorized in this discussion. But all of them just deal with, hey, why are we here? Why are we here? Let me ask that question again after you have heard what Brother Ron said. Brother Keith?
Yeah, so I try to keep things in general simple for myself, simple for people that I talk to. And you know, basically there's been 2 schools of thought of how people view life, right? You can view life through the scientific lens, as Brother Ron talked about, or the religious, prism, if you will. And really, I don't think there's much difference, quite honestly, because everything is everything, right? What I mean by that is if you look at the universe, right, as a whole, and you look at your own life, there's creation out of the greater universe, there's creation that we have within our own body, within our own space. So we're just a microcosm. We're another example of creativity and creation all at the same time. So a lot of times we look outside of ourselves to try to figure out what the why, as the sister talked about. And I don't think it's that hard, quite honestly. One of the things I tell my son and tell other people is that life is really very simple, but it's deep. It's simple from the standpoint that it's really about relatability, relatability with yourself, relatability with other people, relatability with nature, and everything else that exists within the universe, right? And it's deep from the standpoint that this thing that we call life has been around forever and will continue far beyond our physical existence here on this planet. So relax, right? We don't have to, break it down into so many, individual pieces versus kind of focus on the whole and focus on the things that we share in common that connect us, not just to one another as people or as humans, but as life, right? And appreciate that connectivity that we have with all the things that, if you are religious, all the things that God has presented us with, because every society on this ever exists on this planet is trying to figure out that question, the meaning of life, right? And there's always been different interpretations about what the sun means, what the stars and the rain, the river and rocks and all these things mean, right? We weren't the first ones to ask this question. Every single society's asked that question. Every single society has a different definition or explanation for why things exist, whether it's because of the Christian view or the Buddhist view or atheists, whomever. Everybody has a different perspective trying to define what's common to all things. So we don't have to break it into small bits and pieces and try to, figure out what it all is. It's here for us to enjoy for whatever period of time we have on this planet. And as the sister said, trying to figure out why you're here, or more importantly, what is your purpose? My purpose is different from yours, and yours is going to be different from somebody else's. But as long as it doesn't conflict with the greater good of the universe, which is when we tend to get into trouble, right? The universe is perfect. It is absolutely perfect. We may not think it is because we see different things happen in different times and places and space and so forth, but the way the universe operates is perfect. The human body is perfect, perfectly designed. But when we act, in opposition of how nature operates, that's when we have problems. That's when we're out of tune, if you will, out of balance, out of harmony. And so the key is trying to get back there. And sometimes you have to call time out. You have to take a deep breath, take several deep breaths, clear your mind from all the garbage, and just try to exist in the moment.
I agree. That is a foundation that, if we could learn to live by that, everybody would be better off. One thing I want to say, our ancestors and the ancestors of the world, they connected much more with nature. They didn't have TV, radio, all these different distractions. And so they were very much more caught up with nature, and they were able to have a greater ability to, they said back in the day, Jesus lived without the blocks of things, so he was able to arrive at a higher power. That is one theory. But nature and living in nature is a very firm foundation. And if more of us can live by that, we would be better off. But we do have so many distractions. Cassandra, what do
Yeah.
you share about this?
I probably want to throw a little bit of controversy in here.
Please do.
Because when you brought up the Big Bang Theory, I actually ascribe very significantly to the Big Bang Theory because I'm a scientist. My degrees are in science, right? And when you look at the age of this dispensation of humanity, which is about what 6,000 years or so old, give or take, the earth itself is literally millions of years old, and they're
Actually, we've been here over 150 million years.
right.
It's carbon dating that
Can
shows
we
that.
can we
Yeah.
say exactly that we know that? I mean,
Yeah, we
was
do
it
know that.
6,000
Yeah.
or
That
150 million?
Yeah, that's empirically validated. Like, that's scientifically proven. How the age of the earth is scientifically proven. So,
Can I
but
add? Can I add something real quick? I just came
sure.
back from Sydney, Australia, back in October, and they are, I guess, somewhat proud of the indigenous history that they had there. But
Mhm.
the white people there will tell you most definitely that the indigenous people in Australia have been there. They can date back 60,000 years.
Mm, yeah. I
Okay.
yeah. I
So,
absolutely believe in the Big Bang Theory. What I believe in my finite, insight and wisdom, the Big Bang Theory, I think, was a sort of separation between prehistoric man and what that existence was, and the human existence that we're experiencing now. The way that the earth itself was formed, if you look back at a lot of archaeological research and documentaries, the earth is absolutely, I don't know the exact number like Mr. Keith has, but I know that it's millions or billions of years old. That's undeniable. It definitely predates the 6,000 years or so that we have recorded. But I think what if we can, in our Christian belief system, uh, the what God probably had in mind in the Garden of Eden experience, this utopia life, when it was interrupted with sin. I think if there's a short answer, it's our getting out. This journey is to get us back to that place, that place of this perfect God-centered existence. And I think this battle between good and evil, even when you look biblically, I've studied other religions, but I'm not an expert at other religions. But just biblically, it seems to be this ongoing battle throughout biblical record of this battle between good and evil, and then ultimately we get back to this existence of it being all good. um it's something that I think we are not privy to, is the discussion, for lack of a better word, of giving man the option to choose, how they have their relationship with their concept of God, and this battle with flesh and spirit, and looking at this sin issue, the good versus the challenge. How I think this 7,000 year experience that we're in currently, if we're gonna back it up against the Bible, is a debate of some sort related to that. I could be wrong, I could be right. We don't know. I'm too finite. But when you look at just the way that people engage, it is a ongoing fight,
Yeah.
internal fight, sin versus holiness or righteousness, integrity versus being ruthless, this good evil battle. Paul, I think it was Paul that says, when I would do good, evil is always present. You know, we're always sin conscious. We're very conscious of our sinful fleshly limitations, just very conscious of how we're living in this moral existence, so to speak. So I think at the end of the day, it seems to be a battle of the choice. You hear it all the time when people that we look up to fall into sin or sexual immorality. Well, they're just human. Well, we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and we put these excuses, so to speak, not to be able to live what the Bible refers to as a clean, a godly, a holy life, and a holy existence. So it feels like he said, I'm going to give them the choice. And when I say God, I mean God, or God, however you refer to your God existence. He, she, some people go she, some people go he, whatever that is for you. I'm not here to debate that. But
You know what? I don't think it really has anything to do with religion. And not from the way that we view religion here in America. I think it really has to do with something very simple. The African way of life historically was always built on communalism, where we took care of each other. And we've had different versions of communalism here in America, particularly during segregation. It was forced communalism, where we had our own businesses, our own communities, our own schools, churches, everything. And we depended upon each other more heavily than today. What we've adopted is the culture of people that have historically oppressed Black people in this country, which is based on individualism. And when you are functioning in that mindset, you cause separation between yourself and everything, other people, with nature, with the air that we all depend upon. You can justify polluting the water. You can justify killing millions of people. You can justify genocide. You can justify almost anything, because when you have that individualistic mentality where it's all about you, it's all about the ego. That's where the battle is. It doesn't matter if it's Christianity or Muslim or whatever. It's It's the way of life, it's the culture that people choose to embrace as theirs. We are an African people, even though we don't live in Africa today, but if we adopt that lifestyle and the rituals that come along with that, we can have heaven here on earth. We can live differently. We can find our purpose, right? But when we function like white people, we function like their culture, that's when we get into trouble. And it's proven throughout history, not just here in America, but around the globe. You know, you can look at places in the Middle East. When they adopt the American way of life, what happens to their unity? It gets destroyed. The same thing with nature. Nature functions as a group. Bees function in colonies. Birds function as flock. Everything functions as a group. Even Jesus taught about the group process, right? Bringing his people together. It's the group process, it's communalism, living a lifestyle is where you find heaven for Black people. That's the easy button in terms of what we need to get back to, something that's practical that we can start moving towards, where I don't have to debate with you whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian or you're a Jew, whatever. I don't give a crap about those titles.
Mhm.
My concern is, what are we going to do as a African people to change the dynamics in the way that we were forced to live or exist in the society?
I just want to say this. I mentioned before that civilization was in existence before the Bible ever came out. When Abraham was on the earth, he saw the pyramids, which are already 1,000 years old. So civilization did not start when the Bible started. And you know, life, we have said it's so many years old. I'm not even sure if it's not older than we think it is, because you know, we have to depend upon our understanding and God's understanding, the Creator, his of course his depth, his mass is much greater than we can consider or think about. That's what I don't believe that we can totally figure it out as human beings, maybe in another realm, another existence. If
So
we
there's so just to
go
your
ahead, brother.
point, I'm sorry, to your point, and there's a lot that was said, and I just want to kind of see how I can kind of bridge the gap between them. When I say gap, I don't think anything was inconsistent. There's a song, there's an old hymn, and I'm very familiar with it because in New Orleans it's played a lot at funerals, right? There's a hymn that says by and by, right? When that morning come, we'll understand it better by and by. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that
Yes.
specific hymn, but what that speaks to, it goes back. I don't know, one of you guys made, I mean, maybe it was Cassandra made the point of we don't know. I mean, we are finite, right? I mean, we are limited. We're limited to what it is we know. But I think to go back to Brother Keith, what he's saying in terms of we are built, or we was intended to work in communion, right? Collectively, right? So in my book, and it's not making this about my book, but my book is titled Climb, Uplift, and Build, right? Simply means climb, again, that personal endeavor to climb above the adversity, climb above whatever barriers that you personally face. That's the climb. The climb part is personal. But again, once you climb, and then your responsibility is to uplift. So it's climb, then uplift. Uplift what? Uplift others, uplift those around you, right? Because it is strength in numbers, right? Because if I can climb and I can overcome the adversity, whether that adversity be physical, locale in terms of where I am, or whether it be the mental climb of getting out of the state of victimhood, or whatever it is, whatever barrier it is that's keeping me, right? So I can climb, my responsibility to uplift those around me, uplift others, right? And if we can climb, uplift, and then the ultimate responsibility to build, to build stronger communities, right? To build stronger families, stronger individuals, ultimately a stronger and a better world, to get back into what it was intended. And so to go back to the statement about the Bible, I understand certain things are 6,000 years and certain that said, and I firmly believe everything in the Bible is true. However, I also believe not everything that is true is in the Bible, right? It doesn't make the Bible inconsistent or false. It doesn't, it's not that. So everything in the Bible, I do stand by that it is true. But again, not everything that is true is in the Bible. So it doesn't take away from where it was 100,000 years ago, 100, million years ago. All of those things, it goes back to that very simple hymn. We'll understand it better by and by. Our responsibility is to do what we, and we're here for a season, all of us, right? And our humanity, in terms of not humanity as a whole, but our existence, a very, it's a blank. I hear at funerals all the time. They talk about that dash, that born date, that dash, and that deceased date is what you do with the dash. What do you do in that period of time? And that's what it's about. And that keeps us away from, and we're looking at it through those lenses, it keeps us away from the division, right? Whether we're talking race, economic status, from country to country. Think about it. It's the oldest and most effective strategy, and I'm gonna say, of the enemy, right? And again, it's not me trying to impose my views, but divide and conquer has been very successful. Again, whether we talking about we separating, you know, you know, house from the field, black to white, rich, poor, this country, that country, all of that division in one way or the other, and we get out of it. Yes, there's some level of racial pride, there's some level of ethnicity, ethnocentric of who I am. But if it interferes, it makes me somewhat arrogant. I mean, I can have racial pride, and I can have pride in who I am and what God created me to be in terms of a people, without minimizing who others are, right? And so that's where I think we run into the problem in our society. We have this notion of to be, that means someone has not to be, right? But we can all be. We can all collectively get back to the harmony, as Sister Cassandra mentioned about. I think the ultimate goal is we was created in the image of God, right? And our life existence is to do our part, and ultimately to get back to the harmony. And as Brother Keith mentioned, that we can have heaven right here. It's the free will that we was given. We was given that free will, and with free will, it's what interrupt the harmonious balance in our society, if that makes sense.
Yes, brother, it
talked
does
about,
make sense. Go
sorry,
ahead. You want to say, Keith?
just real quick. Somebody brought up about purpose earlier. When I was a kid, right, in grade school, my mother told me that after high school, I was going to college. And in my mind, I'm like, what the hell is college? I don't know what that is. I'm not even sure if I can spell it. But she had a purpose for my life. And that was, I was not only going to college, I was going to a Black college. She already mapped that out. And so the roadmap was already laid. I just had to get on that roadmap and stay on that roadmap. And so for us, we talk about having purpose and finding the meaning of life. We used to give our families and the members of our community their purpose. The purpose was the group. And racial pride is important because everybody else has racial pride. Nobody else has a problem with supporting Hispanics, supporting their businesses. Nobody has a problem with Jews supporting Jewish endeavors or any other group in this country. Only group that has a problem with saying that loudly and proudly are Black people. And the problem you run into, one of the problems you run into is nobody wants to coalesce.
I just want to interject. Somebody else interjected that into our mind by force, because our people back in the day, they did have communalism. They had
Yes.
they had family first. They had all those things back in Africa.
Yes. So to your point, Brother Ron, you're right. I'm not saying that we have racial pride doesn't take away from relationships we build with other people, because we absolutely do need to have alliances with other groups. But nobody wants to have an alliance with Black people per se if we're perceived to be weak, if we're not presenting ourselves as being strong, right? Bringing something to the party. So, like Billie Holiday says, God bless a child that has its own. We have to develop ourselves first. We can focus on the rest of the world later, right? But we got to be strong first. You as an individual, you as a family, you as a community, we got to be strong first. because that's what everybody else is doing. And they're building up their communities. They're building up their equity for their kids and their kids' kids and future generations. We're not
And
making those investments.
a lot of families see their purpose as building a family generation that can last forever with abundance and pride.
Right.
I would say that. Cassandra.
So I want to go. I absolutely agree with everything that both gentlemen have stated. However, when you look at the racial divide, the cultural divide, that is not about Black people in America. That has been from the very beginning. When you're looking at Cain and Abel, you know, that goes back to Ishmael and Isaac. This is not a Christian.
Great point.
The Christianity didn't show up until New Testament after the death of Jesus. So the Bible in and of itself is not Christian. As an aspect of the Bible after Jesus's death is actually where you get Christianity from. So I'm not speaking on in it from that perspective because it didn't start when we arrived in this country. You have had cultures and religious belief systems and opposition since literally the beginning of this dispensation of humanity. You know, so it's not I'm not even speaking on what white people have done to Black people. I mean, you had, you know, Ishmael and Isaac fighting, you know, and Abraham was the father of faith. They're still fighting, which is why you're seeing the wars that you're seeing in the Middle East. Those are descendants of Ishmael and Isaac. It's not about America, slavery, or Black people. So
Really?
I'm speaking more
Really?
from an hold on one second. Let me
Yeah, let her
my
finish.
thought.
Okay.
I'm speaking more from a human germane position. I'm not speaking Black versus white, African versus American, or any of that from my perspective. I'm dealing humanity. I'm a therapist. I'm an RN. I'm dealing with seeing consciousness, it making a decision, the internalized battle. I have literally counseled in over 20 countries around the world, easily 20, easily. I don't care what culture, race, what your origin is. All of us are dealing with the same things. We're way more alike than different. These people have never been in America. They may not be Black or white in our definition. They're from countries all around the world. We all are battling and dealing with literally the same issues. So I'm speaking of a more broader perspective, dealing with human nature itself. Human nature is a battle continually of good and evil. It is a conscious decision that you have to make on a daily basis. I don't care if you're in Australia, New Zealand, you know, Japan, or Tokyo. You have to make a decision to live a certain moral way, whether you're Christian or not. I happen to be Christian, but I have clients that have religions that I've never even heard of. You know, they're worshiping Thor and Moorish paganism and all of these things. Had never even heard of it before I began working with various clients with various belief systems. So I'm not even debating Christianity. That just happens to be my perspective in dealing with the search for significance, God consciousness as a whole. So I want to make that very clear. I'm not speaking about culturism
I
or
totally agree with you.
colonization in that regard. I'm speaking about the internal battle that we have amongst ourselves to make a decision every day to live a certain way, whether I'm Jewish, whether I'm atheist, whether I'm agnostic, whatever I am. The humanistic battles are the same. And the
Can I ask you a
only
question?
thing, hold on one second, let me
Okay,
Let her
sorry.
finish.
the
Okay.
only thing that my spiritual belief system does for me personally, because somebody even claiming to be Christian means nothing to me, because that doesn't speak to anything other than you may have given your life to Jesus as your personal savior. That's the only way I
that's what they're
give to
saying.
that. Okay. But what my personal spirituality does is it helps to give me a check and balance for how I choose to live my life. That's the role that actually plays for me. When you dealing with humanity in and of itself, it's everybody's belief system generally is going to be rooted in something that's going to drive behavior. That's not the argument that I'm making right now. I'm just looking at humanism, search for significance, irregardless of what your beliefs, your cultural or your religious or spiritual. I choose to use spiritual belief system is. So I just want to be really clear about that. I'm not debating Africanism or black, white in America. I'm going back to the beginning.
Your purpose and our reason for existence has really nothing to do
right
with what our purpose is. But let me go to you, Keith. Go ahead. My fault.
Well, it kind of goes back to something I said earlier about individualism, right? We are all individual people and we make individual decisions, but we're influenced by society, societal norms, policies, belief systems, and so forth. Kind of like the question that Brother Ron asked, is it nature, is it nurture, right? So none of us live on this planet in a vacuum, right?
Mhm.
We're always being influenced by opinions and views and energy of other people around us invisibly, right? So to think that you are in total control of this body, this mind, this spirit, it's yours, it's all yours, you control everything that goes on with that, is not true.
That's not
Because
what I
you're, let me
said.
finish,
So
let me
you're
finish,
not.
let me finish.
But
Cassandra, let him
Let
don't
me
finish.
finish.
misrepresent.
Let me
what
finish,
I
Okay,
said. I'm
he
Let me
wasn't
very
finish.
talking about.
respectful.
Can I
He's not
finish?
just talking about you.
I have
Let him
not cut
finish.
you off,
Let,
but
No, let him
don't
finish.
okay,
misrepresent
but
my
just let me
words,
finish.
because
Let me finish my
you
point.
He's
need
not
to
talking
respond
about
to
that.
your
Give him
I'm
a
not talking about
second.
you.
Give him a
thought
second.
process. That's
Give him a
not what.
second.
That's nobody has even said that.
I, I'm not
So
attacking
we
you.
all know that that's not
Can
the
I
way that
finish?
anybody thinks.
Can I finish my point?
Let him finish.
Yeah, but
He'll
you cut
explain
me
it.
Can I
off.
finish
He's
my
not
point?
talking
I
about
don't
that.
want you
I didn't get
misrepresenting
that.
my
I didn't get
words.
that.
That's
That he
not
was
what I
talking
said.
about that. Go
Just
ahead.
chill for a second. Just chill for a second. First of all, I'm not attacking your beliefs. Like you said, what you shared is your perspective. I respect that. I respect that. I'm just sharing mine. And I'm saying that we're all influenced by other people, other human beings that we interact with all the time. We're impacted and influenced by forces seen and unseen. So to think that any one person is totally responsible for what goes on here and in this body, it's not accurate, right? Because you got things that your mother's put in you, your grandfather, your teachers, everybody has put something into this. It's not just you. You've been influenced by everybody, your teachers, right? Your preachers. Everybody has had a part in developing the person that you are. So we are products of society. And in this country, this is what I'm focused on right now, right? In this country, we are heavily influenced by the forces of white supremacy. That's a fact. And to ignore that is a detriment to our own survival. There has to be some historical context into how we got to where we are in order to make decisions today to help us have a better future. To ignore that context, I just think it is not smart.
Okay. Well, let me just
Can I
say this.
just respond really quick
Let me
to
say
that?
this, Cassandra. Let me say this. Both sides are true. Both sides are true. What you're saying is Christianity has nothing to do with humanism.
That's not what I said.
Huh?
Y'all must be in a different conversation than what I'm in, because
Okay, I
never
understand
said
that, but let me try to bring it together. What you're saying is, yes, Christianity is that does not say somebody is good or bad, because from the beginning of life, there has been good and evil. You said Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel were brothers. Whatever faith they were, they came to harm one another. Abel killed Cain. And what Sababu was saying is, hey, we are affected by the world. It makes up who we are. The racists attacked the black people, and that made us scared. It brought us behind the game of life, and it made it much more difficult for us, which affected us and affected how we move forward. So our existence was affected. Now, those white people, they chose to be in that particular way, whether they were identified as Christian or not. Some people, I mean, we wouldn't be here if there was not some good white people, unless, you know, a different scenario were about to happen. So both of y'all are true. Both of y'all are right. But, you know, in a bigger sense, we talking about existence, and we're talking about what is our purpose. Now, our purpose could have been affected by the way somebody else treated us. However, some would say, hey, but that is the way God planned it. Now, I personally don't necessarily believe like that, but I do believe in the energy field of God, and things happen over time as they are supposed to happen. Now, we want maybe the time to be faster or more to our benefit, but things happen in the energy field of time. Now, I turn it back over to you all.
Let me respond.
Cassandra, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just very perplexed as to how he, and no disrespect, you know, how he came up with that analogy based on anything that I said. I am a psychotherapist.
I didn't base it on anything you said. I said specifically. I said specifically your beliefs, your perspectives. I respect that. I have my own.
Sir,
my perspectives are not based on anything you said.
Can I finish my thought respectfully? I know that, you know, let me finish my thought. I try to respect people and not cut them off. Let me finish my thought. I am a psychotherapist. So obviously I'm extremely well educated, and I have I've never stopped going to school since I graduated Howard University in the late 80s. So I've consistently gone to school. You made statements about people being self-contained and controlling their own space and existence. You made statements about, you know, us being impacted by our environment and things of that nature. If I am a therapist, and a very extremely good one at that, I obviously understand how human beings interrelate with their environment, with nature, with everything that is a part of their existence. So no part of me is ever going to even begin to make a statement about you know, managing your own life and you being self-contained and you controlling your own existence. That has literally zero to do with what I said on any level. I never
said you said that.
Sir, you came behind me and you made the statements that you made.
And what you didn't hear, and what you did not hear was, I said your perspectives. I respect them.
As my perspective was not my perspective. I don't even know how you got that summary from what I said. Is what I did not say.
That's my point.
So hold on. Who were you referring to when you made that statement? Who are you?
That's why I said that's
perspective where you
anybody here has been specifically talking about exactly what the other person said. We talking about in general. What we believe in general.
Yes.
He was not talking.
I don't think there's a human being alive that feels like environment and socialization and family impact and culture and spirituality doesn't impact how they think or engage with other people. That's not even logical thinking. Like nobody
count what you were saying.
Can I respond, please?
Okay. Go ahead.
First of all, you get defensive. I never
Defensive,
suggested.
it just makes no
Okay, let him
logical
talk,
sense to me.
Cassandra.
I'm
Let
just
him explain
intelligent,
Let me
himself.
finish.
not defensive.
Miss, you
Hold
said you're
on,
gonna
let
be
it,
respectful.
Cassandra,
It
be
just don't
fair
make
now.
sense.
You said you're gonna be respectful, right? Okay. I never, my statement was never targeted at anything that you said. So you don't have to be defensive. What I was saying in general is that there are people that are very individualistic in this country. They think everything evolves around them, that they did themselves, they didn't have any help. That's what I talked about earlier about the difference between communalism and individualism, right? If you remember when I talked about that. So there are people in our society that think like I just described earlier, right? They don't think there's any social impact on their lives, that they did everything themselves. Now, in your practice, maybe that's not your experience, and that's fine. I'm not questioning your credentials. I'm not questioning your credibility. Any of that stuff. I believe that you very very clearly know what you're doing. So I'm not questioning you, sister. I'm not. I'm just saying that in our
Okay,
society.
I
I'm just saying.
apologize because
I'm saying in our
I thought
I'm
you
saying
were
in our
responding
society.
to me.
I'm saying in our society. In our society, the dominant culture in society is very individualistic. And when Black people subscribe to that society, buy into that society, into that culture, we become and act and behave just like the people in the larger society. And that tends to make us psychologically imbalanced because we are spiritual people. And we're dealing with a group of people that don't appear to be very spiritual. It's like both you guys said, the light and dark, good and evil. That's a dilemma that Black people face in this country that makes a lot of us, some of us, become psychologically sick because we're trying to reconcile between what we've been taught to be and think and believe as Black people in society, but the large society saying, no, we don't want that version. That version is inferior. It's no good. We don't want it. Get rid of it. And we got this duality going on in our psychic about, okay, so do I act Black or do I act white or where's the middle and how do I function and how do I say something not piss them off, this, that, and the other? That's how we go crazy because we're trying to be two different people in the same body two different people in the same body, essentially.
And so if I may,
I just want to say this again. Both of y'all were true, and both things can be true. And one was not talking about the other. One was not. Both of you all are talking from your experiences and what you see, and you're just trying to share a larger version of that.
If I misunderstood, I
Let
thought he
Brother
was
Angeletti
responding
talk,
to
please.
me.
We're good.
So I do apologize
We're good.
sincerely because I truly thought you were responding to me, and that was very thrown off from what I was saying.
No.
So if I took that wrong,
I actually like what you were saying. It was deep.
No, not at all. Please don't take it that way.
Okay, I get it now. I thought you were thinking that I was saying that, and I was like, I couldn't figure that piece out.
All right, it's okay. Let's get back to our
You're
conversation.
Good. You're good. I promise.
What is the purpose? What is the meaning of existence?
So
if
I may, so respectfully, to have this discussion, we started off saying that this is age old, right? I mean, this whole idea. So to have this discussion and not have some level of controversy is not a bad thing, right? It's okay to disagree. It's okay because to have the discussion amongst people that all think the same, I would not deem this as an effective discussion to shift the narrative forward, right? If it was limited to all of us having the exact same view about it, I think there needs to be some level of, and disagreement is not a bad word. Now we need to maintain a level of respect for one another in speaking, but in terms of, we don't have to agree. We really don't have to agree. I think that's what's healthy. That's what's needed because it's an age-old discussion. What's going on, right? I have my views about it, and I definitely understand what both of you guys are saying. When I say guys, I mean the Sister Cassandra and Keith. I fully understand what you guys are saying. Not that I even agree with every part of it, but I do understand your perspective in terms of that, right? And so when I say something, I premise it on I'm not being religious. When I say that, I believe person in a relationship, because I believe in it with a relationship with my Savior Jesus Christ. That's not me imposing. But when I say I'm not being religious, because I don't want to get lost in transit. I don't want signals to cross because I'm gung-ho about religion, so to speak, right? I believe in a relationship. So with that being said, I firmly believe, and not just limited to my faith, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but it is principalities and powers and wickedness. And there is something. Now, whether or not the human form of that, who's in power politically and what's going on, I still know the underlying cause, as one of you guys alluded to earlier, is still good versus evil, right? It's still talking about morality versus, you know, we have a responsibility, right? Now, whether you meet that responsibility through whatever avenue of faith. Now, I firmly believe that the name, now this is not, again, this is me being firm about that, but not trying to impose. I believe at the name of Jesus, every knee gonna bow, every tongue gonna confess. But we'll understand it better by and by. If it just shows I believe that, I have to also believe it's not my responsibility to make you believe something. Now, I can pray for you, I can enlighten, hopefully, but then how you receive that's between you and God. I want to do my part to be transparent in what I believe and what I feel that has helped me overcome obstacles or circumstances. Great. But in terms of having this discussion, whether or not, yes, in this country, if we look at it through the lenses of especially America, and not just America, we look at it through the lenses of in this nation. Like one of you guys said earlier, I keep saying guys, I hope you know what I mean when I say individual. So because saying I'm not minimizing female,
You're
when
fine.
I say
I'm
guys,
not,
that's what
yeah,
I
you're
mean by that.
good.
So
You're good.
and I'm saying that to say yes, in not just in our country, but you know, people of color have been marginalized, and there is some evil that appears to be specifically attached to, when I say race, not just African Americans or blacks in this country, in the world, but we looking at it through the lenses of in the United States, there's some specific oppression that goes on, and it specifically efforts being made to minimize or to try to put up a barrier. But then it goes back to what Brother Keith is saying. I'm a firm believer as a father, as a grandfather, it starts at home, right? Yes, I want to have a tone of reconciliation. I want to reconcile in terms of be a believer, because I still have hope. No matter how it look, how dark it look, I do know there's some things going on, but I have to maintain a voice of hope because I believe that. I believe that things can shift. The minute I talk away from that, when I say we're doomed, not as people, in my household, we're doomed. If I'm the voice, and I was telling my kids, it's almost like no matter what you do, we're in a society that won't let, no matter what you do. I start subscribing to that. So when I say this, I fully believe firmly, as a black man in this country, I have a responsibility to be extra, in terms of on my P's and Q's, as we would call it, to be extra, to make sure, right? And unapologetically about it, right? Not to tiptoe, not to be a lack of racial pride, because someone is going to misconstrue that as some form of a reverse racism, as they call it, or some form of my pride is arrogance. That no. So when I said earlier about I can have a racial pride, I can have pride in being who I am without minimizing what some other race is. Yes, some things have been done by a specific group of people, but as Brother Carl said earlier, if it was just limited to by virtue of you being white, you're evil, and then what about those people that was very instrumental? We could even go to America, Underground Railroad. If it wasn't some white folks that had the desire and will to help, we didn't own homes. We didn't have places to allow these people to come into, right? So there is some people, so we can't just make blanket statements. I'm saying we can't. I don't choose to, and I don't subscribe to, and I don't agree to make a blanket statement by virtue of someone being a certain race. They're inherently evil, and vice versa, right?
Right.
So we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at it, because what happens if we subscribe, even are we speaking through the lens of religion and saying certain people, because of their race, they're evil, and we go. I don't want to say it because things can get taken out of context. You get chopped up, and none of that part is said if someone I said it. But when people had those discussions about these people from the Caucasus Mountains, and they not able to do this, and we are the guys, and we have the melanin and all those things. Yeah, there's some truth that goes with that. But then what happens if it's limited to by virtue of you just having that bloodline? You're doomed, because that means that renders the blood of Jesus ineffective. If because you're white, you're a white devil, so to speak, or because you're black, you're this and that. And then what happens with someone that is mixed, right? A white mother, white father, and vice versa, and then go down to the bloodline. I have to subscribe to there's redemption regardless to what you are in terms of humanity, because we are spiritual beings first. So we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but principality. I do subscribe and believe that. So that doesn't make me less black pride or less of a strong black man to subscribe to the voice of reconciliation. I think there needs to be a reconciliation in humanity. Yes, love starts at home. In the black community, we need to stick our chests out, be proud of who we are. But in doing that, we have to speak more to the social ills that exist at our hands before we start talking about what somebody else did. Yes, there's some things that happen, in history in terms of that. And we're talking about a trap set. Who you blame? The one that set the trap or the one that went in the trap? It's another discussion, right? So my responsibility is to teach mine and teach those that I have some access to traps are set. Do your part. I don't want to talk about what the man is doing if you popping pills or you snorting cocaine or you shooting heroin. What can you do about that? What can we do about that? Let's fix that. Let's make sure we taking care of that. Then we could talk about some outside forces that may be barriers to our success, if that makes sense. So let's not miss it. So there's one way to talk about one without minimizing the other, if that makes sense. I keep saying if it makes sense, because I want to have the tone of reconciliation. I don't mind disagreeing. I don't mind even having some level of back and forth. I want to be respectful. I think that's the way we're going to grow. The conflict resolution is going to bring about the change.
I totally agree with your standpoint on all of that. I just want to say this discussion is bigger than just race. We understand the issues of race that have happened, but we're talking about why are we here,
right,
and what is our purpose. But we do recognize that has been affected by how we've been treated also, because a young black boy in the 20s, his aspirations and what he thought he could become is affected because of where he is. However, this is the world that we live in, and we talking about, is that the purpose? Is there some purpose in God placing him in that particular situation? Because a young boy in Japan maybe didn't have those same kind of problems. A young boy in Brazil did not necessarily have those same kind of problems. So we talking about a higher thing.
exactly.
We recognize that young black boy who he thought he could become, who he became, was affected by where he was. So that is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What is our purpose? What is our meaning? And what did God have an intention for us? And is he looking down upon us and judging us? That is from an anthropomorphic sense, which is a whole nother conversation. You know, are we created in the image of God? That's a whole nother conversation. But we talking about what is our purpose? What is the meaning of existence? And so that is a deep discussion. And it is very good to have a discussion where you can have some disagreement and have some method of resolution. And I think we've done that. Cassandra, go ahead. Share what you would like to share.
Okay. So you actually encapsulated it quite well, because that was what was confusing to me, because I'm not debating Black American culture versus white American culture. My thought process is the search for existence, for significance, for humanity as a whole. So that's what threw me off when that discussion was had, because this is not, in my opinion, based on the subject matter. We're just speaking on the purpose of human existence. The cultural divide, Black versus white in America, that's a whole different conversation. Now that's one I'm prepared to have if we want to come back and have that discussion, but I don't,
Well,
I
he was,
don't,
and he can speak for himself. He was
yeah,
just interjecting that that is
right.
affected.
I get it. Just
Okay.
I'll be done, and I have a session at 8, so I'll wrap this up quick so I can be on my session for 8 o'clock. But nevertheless, my conversation tonight is speaking to the existence of humanity as a humanitarian scientist, as a therapist, I'm looking at humanity. I'm not, my blueprint is biblical because I am a Christian. That is not what's necessarily driving the way that I see the existence of humanity, because this conversation is held irregardless of race, culture, religious belief system, and any is socioeconomic level or anything else. From my perspective, I was not addressing it from that lens. That's a whole different conversation for me personally. When you look at existence of humanity and why did God in his infinite wisdom say, let us make man in our image? That's the question that I was addressing, not black versus white in America, and in the way that we engage in issues around slavery and oppression. That's not the discussion I was having. So I don't see that. I don't see a disagreement. People, it's okay to disagree. I don't disagree with anything Mr. Keats said in that lens of human black culture, white culture overall in this country. I'm in full agreement with what he said. I was responding to, again, thinking he was responding to my comments. So in what he stated, isolated from what I stated, I fully agree with him. There's no disagreement from me on my side at all about what he said. That just was not the conversation that I was actually having. So I want to be very, very clear related to that. There was zero disagreement from me based on what he stated. So I want to be clear about that.
Go ahead, Keith.
I think this was helpful. This was healthy, actually, from a lot of different perspectives. And I really sincerely appreciate what everybody has said today, because first and foremost, we are spiritual beings, as Brother Ron talked about, and the spirit controls the flesh, right? So focusing on the spirit or the spirituality or the spiritual realm of our existence does change humanity, which is what you're saying, Sister Cassandra, right?
Mhm.
But there's some tactics, there's some things, that practical things that we have to do on a day-to-day basis. Some of them we have to do, within our own family environment. There's some social things that we have to address. There's a lot of things that we can address or that need to be addressed. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that we do one and not the other. We got to do all of it to make this place we call home a better place, right? So we're all coming from maybe a different perspective or a different
Lens.
in terms of how we get there, but we're all trying to get there. And let me just clarify one last thing. I'm not trying to pitch black against white. I'm not. What I'm saying is that we have to be strong in order to build alliances with other people, just like a country. Nobody wants to create an alliance with, some small island in the Caribbean, because they don't perceive them as being strong. They perceive them as being dependent. And that's been our role in this country for too many years. So as we get stronger, we can build alliances with people that share our vision of the world. They can be black, they can be brown, they can be yellow. I don't care, because we all have to live here. But we have to start focusing on ourselves first. We've been taking care of everybody else in this country long enough. We got to start focusing on us. And I got to do my role in my career, my background in IT consulting. Everybody's got their swim lane, if you will, in terms of how you operate. if you're dealing with individuals that have mental challenges or emotional challenges, God bless you, because you got a lot of work there,
Yeah.
a lot of work there. And so my hat's off to you. And I really sincerely appreciate the fact that you even do that kind of work, because the need is unfortunately plentiful out there. There's a lot of us out there. And I don't talk in terms of me or you. I talk in terms of us. We got to be better. We got to represent better. We got to lift our games up, right? It's not about you, not about me, not about any one individual. I always talk in terms of the collective. What can we do to better represent? And that's my final thoughts.
Okay, we are toward the end of our program, and this has been the 170th episode of the Sourceseeker Hour, and we are very thankful for our audience and our guests. But right now, we would like to have our final point by everybody, and because you have to leave at 8 o'clock, Cassandra, please go ahead and give your final thought on what is the meaning of life and our purpose for being here.
Okay. So my final thought is how I opened. I believe that the search for significance is to get us back to what the Bible refers to as the Garden of Eden experience, that utopia that I believe when God spoke and said, let us make man in our image. I believe that the ultimate meaning of life, be it on this side of the grave or the other side of the grave, and how we get there is a in-depth conversation. But ultimately, I think when he gave us the choice to make a decision, that we are now living out the result of the decisions that were made in the Garden of Eden. And that this whole journey that we're on is to get us back to that place that God had in mind when he came into council with the Holy Spirit, with the Son, Jesus Christ, when they said, let us make man in our image. I think when Adam and Eve made their decision that put this trajectory in place, we're on a journey to get back to that, whatever that looks like. So I'm just dealing humanity function, not the specifics. That at the end of the day, I think when it's all said and done, we will be back to that place that God originally had in mind, that we would live eternally in this utopia, in this paradise. And I think that this journey that we're on is to get us back to that place. It is an ongoing battle of good versus evil in all of its forms that we've addressed on tonight and those that we haven't. But at the end of the day, I think good will put us back into that paradise that God originally ordained. So that's
All
my
right. And you want to share something about how people can contact you?
Yes, my name is Cassandra Barnes. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Cassandra Barnes RN, on those pages, and LinkedIn as well, Cassandra Barnes RN. And so this has been great. I love stuff like this. So this has been phenomenal. I love challenging conversations. So I don't run
Absolutely.
from it.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Brother Angeletti, if you could share the final word on what is the meaning of life and the purpose of existence, as well as your contact information.
He's on mute.
You're on mute, brother.
Thank you. Because I have a 15-month-old granddaughter running around, so she's making some noise. That's why I put it on mute. But just to echo what Sister Cassandra said in closing is that great conversation, awesome opportunity. Thank you, Brother Alexander, for this
Thank you.
platform to have this discussion. And I think what happened here tonight is a microcosm of what happens in the larger scope of society, whether we talking about the unity of us as a people, right? Or are we talking about just all as citizens in humanity, the communication, the signals, because honestly, if we're the panel having a discussion about this age-old topic, great dialogue, but a part of the time was taken up due to a miscommunication or due to a misperception or what have you. And I think when I say it was a microcosm, that's what happens in society. We're here as panelists to turn the cards face up, our views, so that we can discuss our views and hopefully we can shed some light on it and find what works, what we have in common, even what we have as a partner. At least I can consider what you're saying, even though I may not subscribe to it initially, but maybe something you said may help me as well. But what about the audience? At some point, we miss our, I don't want to say we miss opportunity. I don't say this in a negative way, but when I say it's a microcosm, that's what happens, right? So we lost time, the back and forth, and when I say back and forth, it wasn't that, one over the other, right? Because Sister Cassandra miscommunicated. And if I was to take a position on it, I didn't hear that it was a direct response. I heard that it was a part of the overall conversation. But because that happened, that time was spent focusing on perspective versus the actual issue that at hand. And I think when I say microcosm, I think that's what's happening, whether we talking about in the Black community or we talking about in our nation as a whole. We're more focused on our perspective than the actual issue at hand. And so we lose valuable time and valuable opportunities to address the issue head on and not get caught up in the deliverer or what was said. And sometimes we need to address to make some clarity, but we have to remain focused on the topic of the issue at hand. And the issue at hand, whether we talking about bringing humanity in harmony, or whether we talking about the Black community coming together. I'm sorry. Say it again.
That was it. Nothing. I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute. I'm sorry. I thought.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
I don't want to go there. I thought I was on mute. That's my bad.
That's
Okay, that's
okay.
fine.
Go ahead,
Anyway,
brother.
so that's my point. Again, very healthy discussion. Looking forward to at some point picking up what we leaving off here tonight. I think it's meaningful, it's needed. The dialogue is needed in order to again shift the culture forward. Shift the narrative. Because at the end of the day, we can't ignore the fact. I won't say ignore. We can't. Yeah, we're for African Americans here, Blacks, or whatever the term of the day is, we're speaking through our experiences in this country, right? However, we may want to be objective and reach out and look at other lenses, but our experiences always precede us at the end of the day. So again, very healthy discussion, and I look forward to coming back, kind of picking up where we left off at. So again, my name is Ron Angeletti. My book is Climb, Uplift, and Build. The website for the book is Ron Angeletti Books. .com is my first and last name, and books with an S .com, and the website for Teach Another is teachanother.com. And you can learn more about my advocacy services as well.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother Ron. We appreciate it, and I will be contacting you for another occasion, brother. Sababu Keith, please close us out with the message on what is the meaning of existence.
I've actually learned quite a bit from the other panelists tonight. And I think for me, we all have to figure out how to live on this earth together, right? That is not a new, perspective, but we really do. We've got all kind of global challenges that we face right now with climate and food insecurity and so many other, issues right now. That we have to have a common vision for how we want to live in this world. And that's the thing that we don't appear to have at this point in time, irrespective of religious backgrounds or beliefs, because there's so many, right, all around the globe. But to be able to focus on the things that we share in common as people, right? Regardless of your background, regardless of experiences, is where the focus has to be. And yes, there are going to be some strategies that help us individually and collectively to move in that direction. But we have to have a common vision, a common voice, that can change the dynamics and change the trajectory of the lives of the majority of people on this planet. We have to be able to do with our voices and with our numbers what other people are able to do with their dollars, because that's what we're facing right now. You've got people that, you've got a very few people on this planet that control 99% of the wealth of this country. And we don't have that, but we have numbers and we have our voices. And if we can somehow figure out a way to merge those together, using the foundation of spirituality that exists in every human being, yes, we can change this world. Is it going to happen overnight? No, but we've got to start planting those seeds. I operate a IT consulting practice called VCOM Partners. It's vcom-partners.com. We are a B2B IT spend management company. I'm on LinkedIn under Keith Strong. You can reach me there. I'm also on Facebook as well.
Well, thank you, brother. This has been a great conversation. And I just want to present what I always talk about is building circles. We all can build our circle with our family, our friends, and our trusted acquaintances. We can build circles, and if we can grow those circles to shed light and then connect with another circle within our community, those several circles can branch out and become a big light. And we can influence the world with a big light. Let's say LeBron James presents his circle, matches it with Michael P. Jordan, or Michael B. Jordan, I guess his name is, and they do it in a way that helps the Black community, and then that will eventually help the world, and it'll be a better world. So I present that ideal of building circles. That's what I'm trying to do, is build a circle. I'm trying to build a circle with my acquaintances, my friends, and those who I know who have like minds. So I just want to say, our purpose for humanity, our purpose as human beings, that is still a question. And it'll always be a question. And we are trying to strive to be better every day. And that is what we are doing. And in 2 weeks, we'll have our next program. And our next program will be about DEI and its effect on the Black community. So let's look forward to that. And everybody, we'll see you next time. If you have a question or a comment for a guest, you can send it to me and I'll send it to them, or you can send it to them directly. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody.
Ron, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too as well.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks
y'all.
again,
Have a great
Alexander.
rest of the night.
All right.
Good night.
Dr. Cassandra, soon to be, right?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll see you.